Hello, boys and girls. All right, I'm going to read our final two books for this week, and then we'll do two. We'll do a couple books next week, and then it'll be time for Thanksgiving break. So let me go on and begin. The first book is called Buzz, and again, I'm going against my whole thought process of reading books that deal with fall and autumn, but what I've realized is that I don't have as many books about fall and autumn in my collection at home that I thought I did, but I definitely have some books about winter and Christmas that I will definitely be sharing with you as we get closer to winter break. So, this is called Buzz. Buzz loved being a bee. She loved the taste of honey. She loved dozing in her cozy hive, and she loved nosing in the sunlit clover. But most of all, Buzz, she loved flying. Sometimes Buzz would swoop real low under the blackberry bramble where Snail lived. Sometimes Buzz stopped to visit Snail. Snail, who could not fly, enjoyed hearing Buzz tell about the world beyond her berry bramble. Buzz would buzz the latest. Grasshopper got sick eating too much skunk cabbage, and Mouse is off visiting her city cousin. Sometimes just before dusk, Buzz would swoop real high to visit Old Owl in his willow tree. Old Owl always had wise things to say, such as honey isn't everything and let sleeping owls alone. One day when Buzz was out flying, a storm came up, and the wind blew a sheet of newspaper out from under a bench. The headline caught Buzz's eye. Buzz flew in for a closer look. She was shocked as she read the story. The professor declares that bees can't fly. It says bees can't fly. The rest of the article is missing, but Buzz had read enough. If someone like Professor Popkin said bees can't fly, it must be true. So she's got this shocked look on her face. Bees bobbled and wobbled and fell plip to the ground. Befuddled, she huddled under the brambles. Snail tried to cheer Buzz. It's not so bad not being able to fly, she said. Buzz sniffled. It is for me. Snail offered Buzz a berry blossom. Buzz was not hungry. Berry juice? Buzz was not thirsty. Buzz sniffled that afternoon. I smell smoke. I didn't skip a page. Yeah. Buzz sniffled the afternoon air. I smell smoke. She peered into the woods and saw a flicker of flame. Fire, she cried. Old Owl is in there. Old Owl was a very sound sleeper. Nothing ever woke him before dusk. Buzz had to get to her friend fast. Buzz raced around a fallen pine cone, scrambled over a twig. She stumbled, she tumbled, she tripped, and she flipped. Old Owl needed her, and all she could do was run. How could she ever get up the tree? Buzz wished she had never read the professor's words. The words thumped like her beating heart as she raced over the forest floor. Bees can't fly, bees can't fly, can't fly. I must warn Owl, I must warn Owl, I must warn Owl. The more she thought of Old Owl, the less she thought of the professor's words, until suddenly the milkweeds were below, and the firelight was warm on the buzzing blur of her wings. She was flying. She darted into Old Owl's nest. Smoke billowed and made her drowsy. She settled woozily by her friend and buzzed as loud as she could. She held that note until she toppled into Old Owl's ear. Old Owl awoke with a start. Fire! He cried, and he swooped from the nest. He perched in the hollow of a nearby maple tree and waited. Luckily, it soon began to rain. Later, when it stopped, Old Owl shook his damp feathers. Then he sneezed. Out from his ear popped Buzz. "Buzz," said Old Owl, "what are you doing in my ear?" "I think I saved you," said Buzz, "and I can fly." "Of course you can fly," said Old Owl. "You're a bee. Bees fly." "Yes," said Buzz, "you're right. I'm a bee. I can fly." So, if you're thinking about the theme of this book, the theme could possibly be don't let what other people think of you keep you from doing what you know you can do. Okay. And you may come up with other things that you can talk to your parents about. Okay. The next book is kind of fallish, a little bit. I think of it as a fall book because it's called The Relatives Came. And when we have fall, we have Thanksgiving, and typically we think of our family coming to visit us for Thanksgiving or for Christmas. So when I was younger, I had to travel pretty far away to visit my family um, into Virginia, and I believe this is where they are going. And so I always think about those long car rides and what they had to go through. So it's called The Relatives Came. It was in the summer of the year when the relatives came. They came up from Virginia. They left when their grapes were nearly purple enough to pick, but not quite. So you have them all packed up all their stuff in this little bitty car. They had an old station wagon that smelled like a real car, and in it they put an ice chest full of soda pop, and some boxes of crackers and some bologna sandwiches, and up they came from Virginia. They left at 4 in the morning when it was still dark, before even the birds were awake. They drove all day long and into the night, and while they traveled along they looked at the strange houses in the different mountains, and they thought about their almost purple grapes back at home. They thought about Virginia, but they thought about us too, waiting for them. And I don't know if it ever tells us exactly where they were going. I like to pretend they were coming to Kentucky. So they drank up all their pop and ate up all their crackers and traveled up all those miles until finally they pulled into our yard. And here they are. Their luggage is all bouncing around. They're coming through this gate here, and here comes the family to meet them. Then it was hugging time. Talk about hugging. Those relatives just passed us around their car, pulling us against their wrinkled Virginia clothes, crying sometimes. They hugged us for hours. Maybe if you go to visit relatives that live a long way away, you may feel like you hug them a lot when you see them. Then it was into the house and so much laughing and shining faces and hugging in the doorways. You'd have to go through at least 4 different hugs to get from the kitchen to the front room. Those relatives, they're just super excited they're there. And family, and finally, after a big supper 2 or 3 times around until we all got a turn at the table, there was quiet talk, and we were in twos and threes throughout the house. I remember going to eat Thanksgiving at my grandparents' house and us having to sit at the kids' table. So you can see that they kind of have a kids' table here. The relatives weren't particular about beds, which was good, since there weren't any extras. So a few squeezed in with us, and the rest slept on the floor, and some with their arms thrown over the closest person, or some with an arm across one person and a leg across another. It was different going to sleep with all that new breathing in the house. So they're all just sleeping wherever they can find a spot. The relatives stayed for weeks and weeks. They helped us tend the garden and they fixed any broken things they could find. They're fixing that gate here that they knocked over with their car. They ate up all of our strawberries and melons, and they promised we could eat up all their grapes and peaches when we came to Virginia. But none of us thought about Virginia much. We were so busy hugging and eating and breathing together. Finally, after a long time, the relatives loaded up their ice chests and headed back to Virginia at 4 in the morning. We stood there in our pajamas and waved them off in the dark. We watched the relatives disappear down the road, and then we crawled back into our beds that felt so big and too quiet, and we fell asleep. Sometimes after you have a lot of company, the house feels really empty after everybody's gone. And the relatives drove on all day long and into the night, and while they traveled along, they looked at the strange houses in the different mountains, and they thought about their dark purple grapes waiting at home in Virginia. But they thought about us too, missing them, and they missed us. And when they were finally home in Virginia, they crawled into their silent, soft beds and dreamed about next summer. And that is the end of The Relatives Game. I hope you enjoyed this book, and I will see you back here to read on Monday. Have a good weekend.